Alright, I'm going to do a quick video here. This is a re-record, so if you see this video and you think that it's a little too similar to something you already saw in the online workspace, I'm re-recording it because some folks had some trouble with this in MediaCast, and I didn't have the original video, so I'm doing a re-record here. So this is just the welcome, the introduction. I'm just going to go through the workspace with Photoshop. The first thing I want to do, of course, is to launch Photoshop, and you can go through the book to see how to do that. I already have Photoshop launched here. I just want to take you through very basics of the workspace and some basic things with how to work with files and where things are located. The first thing I want to do is just create a new file and discuss what this dialog looks like. This is the new File Dialog. You can see here that we have a number of options. We have the width, we have the height, we have the resolution. We'll talk about what appropriate resolutions are in a later lecture. We also have the color mode. There's a couple of different color spaces you might want to use. We'll talk about those later as well. You can decide whether you want the background to be white, transparent, or whatever happens to be the background color at the time of the new files created. Don't worry too much about what's going on down here. These are, as it says, advanced, some more advanced features. I'm just going to accept the default here. But that's where we can kind of create a file of a particular size and workspace if we'd like. You also need to understand how to save and save a file as. And I'm going to look at, there's nothing to save now, and so save's actually grayed out. But the save as dialog I wanted to talk about a little bit, because I think there actually are some important things that you need to be aware of here. Of course, if I go to save as, I'll get the opportunity to change the file name. But in addition to that, I want to show you how to change the format down here. Now, by default, it looks like I got a JPEG here. But you need to understand that this is how you actually change a file back and forth to different formats appropriately. If I ask you to save something as a PSD, this is how you'd actually go in and go to File, Save As, and tell it you want it to be a Photoshop file, which would then give it that PSD format. We'll talk about some different acceptable file formats as we go through the class. There'll be a particular section where we'll talk about the most common file formats for raster graphics and what those file formats really should mean to you. And I'm not going to actually save right now. I may save something later for you, but I really don't need to save right now. One of the other things that I wanted to show you is the file information, and that's under File and File Info. Now, file information is a really handy tool. At the very least, I want you guys to get used to putting your name in under author. So I'm J. O'Brien. And the reason why is because if your files get mixed up with someone else's files somehow, this is an easy way for me to identify your files. This is a good habit to be in because then you can always identify your files. In addition to that, it might be a good idea to actually put cut line information into the file description here. There's a number of reasons why you might want to do that. Some reasons why we might want to do it now, there's actually some new great functionality that have to do with file information. Before I used to tell students, this is where the Associated Press puts their cut lines. This is a great place to put information so that if you forget it years later, you can get that information. But there's great applications right now. If you upload a photo into Facebook, for instance, if I were to save this file, upload this file into Facebook, it would actually automatically pass this cut line information into the Facebook description for the photograph. So that's one way that we do it. We can rate files. We're going to learn how to rate files with Bridge later on. That's actually a much easier and more appropriate way to do this. You can put some additional information, keywords, things like that. You can put the copyright status in. You can say that you want it copyrighted. We're going to talk about copyright and ethics and week 4, I believe, so you'll understand that a little bit better. But just a great place to store information about your files so that you always, it makes it easier to go back, you look at a file and you're not entirely sure why you took the photograph, what the purpose of the photograph was. If you did a good job keeping file information, you don't have to worry about that. You're going to be able to find that information. Oh, I'm just going to say okay actually here because I do want it to keep my name. One of the other things I wanted to go through is just the basic workspace. Now, I'm not crazy about terminology. I'm not going to quiz you guys and make you guys remember a bunch of terminology, but it's important that you do remember some of the terminology, particularly when it comes to the workspace, because when the book references things in the workspace, it's going to be easier for you to find things. Some of the basic anatomy to our workspace. Up here across the top we have what's called our options bar. It's called the options bar because excuse me, I have a little cold here, so if I am a little muffled, I apologize. As I cycle through different tools, you can see that the options change for each tool, which of course brings me to my next topic, the tools bar, as you can see here, which I'm going through. I'm not going to talk about what each of these tools are going to do because some of them are very complicated, so it's going to take us the entire semester to get there. But I do want to point out a couple of things with the toolbar. One of which is how we can find shortcuts so we can move a little more quickly. Let's say I'm going between the eyedropper and the brush frequently. If I hold my cursor over the tool, you can see that it actually tells me what the tool is. These are called Tooltips. It tells me what the tool is, and it actually says B in parentheses. That means if I press B on the keyboard, then I will actually get that tool. I actually also know that if I press I, I'll get my eyedropper. So if I'm working in a document and I don't want to have to go back to the toolbar over and over again, I can just go back between the tools just by pressing those keys on the keyboard. V is my selection tool. I'll go back to that. So that's a really handy thing. In addition, you can see some of these tools have a little triangle in the lower right hand corner. That's communicating to you that you have additional tools that are underneath. So here we have, let's look at the lasso tool. If I click and hold, I can see additional tools. I only have a lasso tool, but I have a polygonal lasso tool, and I have a magnetic lasso tool. So those little triangles mean that there are more tools that you can access. And sometimes we need to dig for the tools that we need. Across the bottom we have the status bar. The status bar is going to communicate things like the current magnification, which is 66.7. If I zoom in a little bit, it changes to 100. Here we have the size of the document. So the 2.25 is how it would actually be saved. I haven't actually painted anything yet. I don't have any additional layers, so but that would actually change as I painted something. See, there we go. So now it's 2.25 and 2.25 because it actually has to save some additional information. And then on the right we have the panels and the panel dock. Of course, a panel dock. A dock means anything where you store things. In this case, the panel dock, I'm storing the panels there. You know, we dock our computer in our workstation. We dock our smartphone at home. You know, if we had a boat, not that many of us do, but we store our boat at a dock. So it's the same thing here. We can customize these panels and play with the panels in this dock. We can customize this. So, you know, here, and we actually have the ability to kind of layer information. It's kind of ironic that I actually had my cursor over layers right then when I said that, but underneath the layers, I have another tab in this panel. I can go to channels, and I can go to paths. I can also, like I said, customize. I can actually move my panels. I'm clicking and dragging. You can see I can move the layers panel out. I could put the layers panel back. You see that blue line? That means I'm docking it again, but I'm docking it someplace different. So I'm creating a custom workspace now. We have a number of workspaces. You can get those. This is the Workspace Switch button. You can see we have 3D motion painting. If I click on painting, obviously panels that have to do with painting are going to come up. If I go to typography, panels that have to do with typography are going to come up. And then, like I said before, I can create custom workspaces. Let's say I like having my layers out here. I can actually tell it that I want a new workspace. I'm going to call it Jay's Workspace. And I'm going to click Save. And now, up here at the switch, it actually says Jay's Workspace. If I go back to Essentials, it's going to give me what the essentials were before, but you can see here that a lot of things have changed, which is going to bring up another piece of functionality that you need to be aware of. Sometimes, because you're working through a book, you'll move things around, and then the book is going to tell you in a later chapter, you know, under the Layers panel, find the Channels panel, and then you're going to look over here at your layers, and you're like, I don't see my channels. I don't understand what's going on here. That's because the Layers panel is not in the default place for the Essentials workspace. I can reset that. So I can go to the Workspace Switch, click on it, Reset Essentials, and now the Channels panel is actually located in a tab right here with the Layers panel. So that would make sense again. So if you find that you are having trouble following along in the book, and you think it may be because you've made changes to the workspace, reset the workspace. Alright, so let's see here. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save this. And the reason I'm going to save this is because I want to talk about two other things here. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. It's going to be a PSD. It's going to be on my desktop because I'm going to delete it later. And I'm going to call it test underscore JLO. JLO, of course, that's my initials. That's another way that I can more easily identify whose files are whose. No JLO jokes, please. And then I'm going to click Save. And then, oh, you know what? It didn't come up here. It only comes up on PCs. Another dialog box may come up. Because I'm on a Mac, it didn't come up. When I'm on my PC, it does come up. And it asks you if you want to maximize compatibility. When you see that, just go ahead and click OK. That's perfectly fine, and it's just making some features available in other programs. It's doing exactly what it says. It's maximizing compatibility, which is a good thing. So go ahead and say OK on that, and then I just can close the file either through the X, or I could have gone to File and of course Close, and then of course you'll learn the shortcuts as you go along as well. So that's a basic introduction to the workspace. Really nothing to it, and you're going to go through this workspace with the exercises in the first couple of chapters.